Hello, Jonathan. How are you doing?
I'm all right. I'm all right. Bit tired by the end of the day, but I'm all right. Yeah, good. How are you?
Okay, I'm all right. I've been doing well. Could be better, but it's okay. I'm here with you now. We're here on this podcast, thinking around the question. It's a great end to my day when I come here. So this is thinking around the question. It's a podcast which kind of asks questions, interesting questions. We discuss things, try and get to things in more depth. I think we never really get to the bottom of the matter, isn't it, Jonathan? And you're joined with Dr. Jonathan Newman, who is a renowned anthropologist, and myself, Dr. Musa Sami. I'm a consultant psychiatrist. You're looking a bit askance at me there.
I just don't know if I'm renowned, but I think you're more renowned. You've been in the Daily Mail. And I love this phrase. Could do better. Could be better. Could be better. It's a bit like could do better, isn't it? But there we go. Lots of renown. So look, yeah, and we don't get to the bottom of it because there is no bottom to get to. Anyone who achieves the bottom, I think, has really hit the bottom. But that's what people like, isn't it? A fact.
But I
So,
think
yeah.
what our producers keep telling us is we need to start saying this. Please, listen to this podcast. If you like it, please like, subscribe, tell your friends. We are trying to avoid sound bites here and trying to really take on some very serious discussion points and trying to have that kind of deeper level of conversation. I think, Jonathan, that's why we're really doing this, isn't it?
I think so. Can I also say, if you don't like it, also subscribe and tell your friends how great it is, and then you've got the last laugh, haven't you? Um, Good. Uh, yeah. Well, you kick off. I mean, I don't know. We can talk
Yeah.
about what you want to talk about, or I've got 10
Okay.
kilos of rice to show you. So I don't know what you want to talk about.
Okay, I want to talk about a kind of more serious topic today. Just tell me about the rice. What's going on with the rice?
Seeing as you asked.
Is it basmati rice?
No. I went to get
Ah,
some rice, thinking the world was going to end. I thought I'd
yeah,
better get some rice because a lot of political conflict, oil drying up, all
yeah.
sorts of awful stuff. I thought, well, at least if I go down, I'll go down with a big bag of rice. And then I noticed it was from Pakistan, which is
Oh,
your is your
don't
heritage.
ask. Oh, we make the best. Jonathan, don't ask me about rice. We make the best rice. I have ancestral lands which are fought over in my family. Producing quality rice, as we call it. And that that is
Is
going
that it?
to
Is that from you?
well,
Is this rice from your family? And this is called
well.
cellar rice, and it says we guarantee that this rice is probably the best rice in the world
Oh, okay, okay.
and is processed and packed for people that love rice.
Oh, yeah. Rice, rice, big part of my world or my ancestral world. But I'm not going to go there today. We might
Can you
talk about
guarantee,
later.
can you guarantee that rice is probably the best in the world? I mean, is it?
Well, I mean,
What's a
I take
guarantee
it
where you say
better.
I guarantee that it's probably? That's kind of not a guarantee, is it? It's heavy. Anyway,
Okay.
come the apocalypse, I'm going to be all right.
Jonathan, there's been a lot going on. There has been in the world, hasn't there? There always is, right? And just the context for listeners, a few days ago, there was probably very likely to be an anti-Semitic attack um, on a Jewish charity. I believe four ambulances for the charity were burnt down in the middle of night. We've had I think, a group who has claimed responsibility for it, but it's not confirmed what was exactly, whether they're credible claimants, what exactly has gone on. It's very likely, isn't it, Jonathan, that it was an anti-Semitic attack. We've had a number of anti-Semitic attacks over the years. There is increasing concern in Britain, particularly from the Jewish community, about increasing rates of anti-Semitism, and there's certainly been a recorded rise. And there's a feeling as well that not enough is being done to protect the Jewish community. That's certainly coming out from some quarters of the community. And I wanted to talk about this with you today, if you would be happy to.
I can, as long as I can be honest.
Yeah. Go on.
No, that's it. As long as I can be honest and say what I feel like saying, even if you don't like it.
Yeah, John. So why can't you? You know, have you ever pulled your punches from me?
Yeah, but I realise what I might say in response to some of your questions might. But we'll see. Let's see what happens.
No. And that's exactly why I think it's important to have this conversation. I think, you know, in the background we're two very close friends. I think, Jonathan. I think that's fair to say. You're of Jewish background, although you don't actively practice a faith. That doesn't mean that you don't have very deep and profound spiritual beliefs and experiences, which we've certainly explored today. I'm a much more conventional Muslim in that sense, right? I kind of practice, and as according to the text and the book, and so it's been really interesting over the years, our kind of friendship, because I suppose that people would think that we would be kind of worlds apart, isn't it, Jonathan? And I've never really understood that.
Well, it's because it's a load of what's the polite word? It's a load of nonsense, isn't it? I mean, why would we be worlds apart?
Yeah, I mean that's a topic that we're going to kind of drill down to, and I'm sure we will do over the course of this next podcast. But it has been my experience, Jonathan, because I look essentially like what I am. It has been my experience often that people stereotype me, and imagine to tell me what my views or my beliefs about certain things are without giving the courtesy of, listening to me. Which, Jonathan, I will just say, is why I love talking to you, because you always listen to me. Sometimes you might get, I don't know, an opinion that you don't expect. Sometimes it might be exactly along the lines that you suspect, but at least we can have the conversation.
We can. I'm a bit confused about. I mean, it's that line. Sometimes things trip me up. And you say what people. I look like what people expect of me. And of course, I've seen you many times now, so I don't see you as a stranger in the street. I don't see you as someone walking past you. I might, when you see someone you don't know, you attach labels to them remarkably quickly. And as you get to know them, you start attaching different labels to them, and the more you know them. And of course, what struck me today is your shirt matches my blanket on my chair. That's what I picked up from you today. I thought, I've got a similar shirt in my wardrobe, and from TK Maxx, and I was thinking, we've got a similar dress sense. I've just come from work, so I'm dressed like the professor, but that's what I picked up about you today. But of course, different days we pick up different things. Yeah. If we know someone, if we don't know them, well, we're stuck with some pretty basic stories, which could be probably written on a postage stamp if you can still find one. That's my opinion. But you wanted to talk about anti-Semitism, ambulances, fire, conventional Muslims, and I can't read my writing.
Well, let's put all of that to the side. I'm really interested. I want to hear, what's your experience of anti-Semitism? Have you had experience of it?
What's my experience of it? Yeah. Okay. Let's pedal back slightly.
Yeah.
We'll come to explore and circle around what this term anti-Semitism means. Let's stick with a simple term of some sort of negative othering, some sort of, if you like, racism, and that. And so, as I grew up as a child, there were two Jewish families in our road, and we were one of them. I still remember the tellers, Anthony Teller, my friend, the other Jewish person, and we were trying to make sense of our Judaism because we didn't practice, so we didn't have Jewish community, and I don't think they did. Maybe they did. I don't think they did. Maybe they did more than me. We had cousins who did, but we didn't do it. So at that point, you've got one bit of it without the other bit of it, just showing how they are quite detached as well. It is possible. It is quite possible to do one without the other, which is quite funny when people have stereotypical images. So yes, I grew up with me being Jewish as a thing, as an amusing thing, as a thing which I was trying to make sense of. And I remember talking to Anthony Teller, walking up the road to the village barns. I don't know, we must have been about 10 or something. We were trying to work out what the story of Jesus was about, because what we knew at that basic age was he wasn't our Jesus, because we were Jewish, but we didn't know what.
Okay.
I mean, you're just trying to grasp. And then meanwhile, I remember going on some scout camp and someone got me pilchard and tomato paste because he knew I had strict eating laws. Of course, my strict eating laws was I really didn't like pilchard and tomato paste, and God, can I have some nice food? So you're constantly dealing with these expectations, and then of course you get to the anti-business. You get to the point where it's no longer just trying to work out what this other person is and getting it pretty wrong, but you're also doing them down. And then when I hit secondary school, that hit large, and the National Front were very big. And from year 2 to year 5, I was bullied, and I was badly bullied. And the Jewishness was part of it. It wasn't just Jewishness. I've got my own social awkwardness that played into it, but it was a part of it, and it was an overt part of it. And that was very difficult. And I've been hit. I've been hit just out of nowhere.
Really?
Yeah. And
I'm
when
so sorry.
I had an encounter with the police once, and they insisted on calling me Mr. Newman. And they pointed out that if I got into trouble, I'd miss the Jewish New Year, which I had not. They were just obsessed with my Jewishness, which obsessed them far more than it obsessed me, because I'm not really that aware of it. So that goes on, and then you get I've got a friend who's Jewish, or you get that thing where people don't quite trust you because you're doing it in a slightly Jewish way, and it's a bit untrusty, and then all the stuff around money, and so your relationship with money, whatever it is, and we all have different relationships with money, is filtered through this thing of Jewishness. And you start to believe it. That's the saddest thing. You start to believe it. You think, oh, maybe there's something in that. And I never thought I was Jewish. I didn't think I was Jewish for years and years. And then I saw a Woody Allen film, Radio Days. And I watched it. I thought, oh, my God, they're like us. Oh, my God, all these people are like us. It really shocked me. And I thought, maybe I am a bit Jewish. Maybe some of my gestures are a bit Jewish. I don't know where they've come from. I mean, maybe it is. I don't know, maybe it's in the blood, but I'm a bit like that. I'm not a bit. I mean, maybe that's the Pakistan way of sitting. I don't know.
All right, okay.
And then I just want to just one last little bit. So all that goes on, and then something happens. You feel it. Something happens to something Jewish, and you feel a bit more. Jewish that day because there's been something happened. But there's other sides. I mean, my friend up the road, Dan, he's North London Jewish. So different, not the North London Jews, a different bit, not the sort of Stanmore or Golders Green bit, different bit. A lovely guy, drums. And I was mending the car once. I was changing the tyre, and he drove past, and he went, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" I said, "I'm changing a tyre." He said, "We can't do that. We can't do that." I said, "What do you mean we can't do this?" He said, "We're Jews. We can't do those things." And I knew just what he meant. But of course, it's a nonsense. It's about a particular type. It's true too. So I don't know. I don't know what I am in all of that. I quite like it. And look, here I am, a little aspect of me is the intellectual and the quirk. Maybe that's Jewishness. I don't know. It It is if you put it, if you put a chicken hat on someone, they look a bit like a chicken.
Yeah. I just want to. When we're talking about growing up, right? What kind of era is this? Where are we talking about? Are we talking about London?
And me, I was growing up just outside London, just outside the M25,
Whereabouts?
Hertfordshire.
Hertfordshire. Okay, sure. And what time are we talking about? 70s, 80s?
Yes, I'm born in '65, so that gives you a
Okay.
sort of
So, yeah.
trajectory.
Okay. Sure. And
Commuter belt, suburbia.
mm, yeah. Okay. And so you're talking about. Look. There's lots of things that you've told me about there, right? Yeah. You're going to say something. Sorry. Don't want
I
to
was just
interrupt
going to
you.
say, of course, we mustn't forget the political climate of the time was the National Front was getting very far big. Where I
Yeah.
lived had the largest skinhead movement in the UK at the time, which doesn't make sense considering it was some silly little suburban
Hertfordshire.
village outside of town. But apparently it did. It was on the news.
Ah, I would have thought that would be Luton or Millwall or something
You'd
like that.
think so, yeah. But it probably
Mm.
is now. But that was their little claim to fame. And a
Mm.
pope. Anyway, by the by. How
So
can I
look,
help you, Doctor?
yeah, no. So I suppose the thing is, there's lots of different things kind of wrapped up in all of that, and what you've just told me, isn't there? There's the recognition of the kind of being different, right? Which is kind of really, it starts off really innocuous, isn't it? There may be some cultural misunderstanding, perhaps thinking about, well, perhaps I should. What I hear you saying is perhaps at that time I felt there were times maybe I should be a bit more Jewish than I am. Does this really label really fit me? You know? But then there's the kind of malicious side to it, isn't it? And that's, I think, what we mean by anti-Semitism, right? The National Front stuff, the being beat up, the episode with the police, all of these kind of things. That's yeah. I just wonder how you took it at the time, as someone who didn't actively identify as Jewish.
Badly.
Yeah.
Badly, not as in badly as in if only I'd taken it badly and thought, well, I've got to watch my language, and stood up to it and
Hmm.
gone, we're having none. No, badly, as in I internalized it and felt shit about myself. Sorry, I felt bad about myself. But yeah, no, it was just, it wasn't good. And of course, I still reject my Jewish identity a bit because I don't know what it is. I do feel like a failed Jew. Which Jewish people often think
Well,
I'm not
yeah.
failed, but I carry that because I don't know anything about it. Nothing.
Well, you don't. Well, you don't practice the faith, right? Yeah, and you weren't brought up in the faith of Judaism
Uh
and the
huh.
rituals, right? But often when we have discussions, um, so you come from a wider community, isn't it? You're able to tell me about your, such and such an uncle or an aunt or a friend or these kind of things, and you're able, there's been also over the last few years where we have discussed these things. I don't think we've discussed them, frankly, on the podcast so far. But we discussed them on the phone and these kind of things. When certain events take place, I can hear it in your voice, Jonathan. It hurts you, it affects
Mm.
you. I mean, I don't know you. I don't know if you've ever acknowledged it to me in exactly those words before, but I can hear it.
Yeah, of
You know?
course it affects us, and I think it's one of the things that we have in
Yeah.
common is we've been on the other end of it,
Mm.
and we know it. And I suspect, like you, I can smell it when it's around, and I've
Mm.
had modern experiences where I go, oh, look, it's that. It's that, is it? Oh, it's that look. It's that phrase.
Really?
It's that. I mean, yeah. I mean, there's other variations of it. I've been confused uh, several occasions. I've been confused with the state of Israel. I
Mm.
mean, it's hard enough for me being confused as someone who's Jewish when I'm not quite sure what it means, and I'm not totally enamored with people identifying themselves on singular markers or even multiple markers. I think we're far more complex than that. But then to be confused with a state, I think
Mm.
that's very odd. but maybe if I was all into states, I mean, I think, I mean, people. It's not like. Don't get me wrong. To an extent, it is. They assume I'm. This doesn't happen all the time, but when it happens, they assume I represent the state of Israel. Just like they might assume I represent the state of Britain, or we might say to an American, "Oh, you Americans." What's this nonsense? I mean,
Jonathan, to me, that's hilarious, right? Because I know you, and I definitely, perhaps I think that you are more Jewish than you let yourself be known for, right? In terms of, you've told me, what have you told me? You've told me about your heritage. You've told me about your grandparents. You've told me about there is some distant relationship with like Israel and kibbutzes and these kind of things, right? And so it does kind of color certain aspects of your existence, but I wouldn't have known any of that if you hadn't told me. And for the first, I will just finish my point. For the first several years, I think I might have said this before. I had no idea that you were Jewish, nor did it concern me. Nor did it concern me when I found out that you were Jewish, although I thought it was really interesting. Am I supposed to know that you're Jewish? I mean, from your name, Jonathan Newman, do people? How will people even know? What?
It's so funny. I mean, it's so funny. Okay, so firstly, I think you have always been far more interested in my Jewishness than I have. In fact, I would say you're even far more interested in my Jewishness than many Jewish people are.
Sure.
Which is because these ethnic sides to identity are important to you for reasons which we have explored a bit, and we can explore, if possibly even today as well, why this resonates with you so much. So there's aspects of that, but of course I also deny parts of me which are stereotypically Jewish. I mean, I don't know, I don't sit there and do the Friday night dinner and all of that, but something about me is a bit. But is it? I mean, where I bought the rice from, it's interesting. He's so nice to me, lovely guy. I think he's from Afghanistan. I'm not sure, but he doesn't. Someone said someone else said, "Oh, you look a bit Iranian." I thought, well, maybe I do actually, especially wearing this. And I should show you a photo of me with a hat. I look Mongolian. I mean, this is where it all becomes a nonsense. It's just these tiny little changes in clothing and appearance and Photoshop and beard, and I become someone else, as you do to an extent too. But because we live in Britain and this pigmentation issue reigns so strongly, it clouds. I mean, talk about wearing filters on your glasses. It's really incredible. And you have that, whereas of course we're well, that's the part of anti-Semitism. They're deceitful because they hide among us. That's the problem. Well, that's one of the problems.
Okay, all right. I think I agree with you to a certain extent. One thing I always really want to do, when I see patients actually, and maybe one day I'll get around to doing this, right? I would love to see my patients wearing an Afghan cap, one of those white caps. I have one here, and a chadar, and wearing shalwar kameez, which I do sometimes, and whenever I go down like this, to kind of go to my clinic, my remote clinic and stuff, my wife and my mum are absolutely horrified, right? Because I must not be seen like that, because I will just, it will, and then, I never do it because I know it will attract complaints. It will attract a certain conception of who I am. Of course, I'm the same person. I'm the same doctor, the same psychiatrist. Doesn't really matter what I wear, right? If I just like wearing certain clothes or I find certain clothes more comfortable, then why can't I wear that? But you're right. It gives a certain view of us, isn't it? These small things, the beard, the hat, the look, right?
And that takes us neatly into this. So me with this very nebulous Jewish identity, with these things where I'm not convinced by anyone's identity and these identity markers.
Mm.
Very careful on the hats I wear, because I
Yeah.
have a hat which I absolutely love, which is from India, but it's kind of I bought it outside a mosque. It's lovely. It just holds my head. I just like the feel of it, and I wouldn't wear that on the street. And
Mm.
I have the sort of little, the yarmulke Jewish hats.
Yeah.
I wouldn't wear those on the street. I, why not? Because I'm afraid.
Mm. What are you afraid of?
I'm afraid of trouble. I'm afraid of people taking offence at me. I mean, that's what I'm afraid of. I mean, my daughter, she's been making this headscarf for her mum,
Okay.
who's Latin.
Yeah.
But she put it on. She goes, look, if mum wears this, she's gonna look like she's Muslim. It does
Yeah.
that. It does that to the face. I mean, she was just making something from a pattern, but once it put on, it does that. And I thought, and she put it on. I thought, oh my goodness me, it does do that to your face. It transforms you into another identity in front of our eyes. And the question is, would you walk down the street like that, or will it? Is it going to cause a problem? And that's incredibly disturbing, because what I say as I say that is, as you walk down the street looking like you do,
Mm.
you already carry the problem that I'm afraid of. For those people wearing the little hats, the Jewish hats, who walk down the street, a whole load of meanings are attached to them. If my daughter wears, or her mum wears this hat, they'll assume
Well, who?
whoever they are, will assume she's Muslims, or Muslims might assume someone's not Muslim but trying to look Muslim. I mean, it's all sorts of
Ah,
possibilities.
that,
Why
that,
are we
that's
governed by this stuff?
that's fascinating, isn't it, Jonathan? I suppose the question for this, I'm going to just pop outside the conversation about anti-Semitism for just a moment, and then come back to it, right? But last week, as you might know, it was the last week of Ramadan, and there was a iftar event, which is the breaking of fast in Trafalgar Square, and there was a prayer event, which is a very simple prayer event. This happens, by the way, 5 times a day, all the time, and these type of prayer events happen in public as well in the United Kingdom, all the time. And iftar events happen in multi-faith gatherings all the time. I mean, this is not new. This has been going on for years and years and years. I would posit even for the last 50, 60 years in this country in public in some form or another, right? And a political party, as we know, took. Was it a political party? No, it was the other one. It was the Conservative Party. That the I think the Nick Timothy, who is the Shadow Minister for Justice, he took great offence at this. Said that this was all about domination and read things into it which were completely not the meaning of what was being ascribed. So, and it was really interesting about certain subtle changes in language that and you could hear the Tories and Reform tripping over themselves, trying to justify what was essentially and has been for years an innocuous event and why this is dominating and domineering. And so the question is, in both the conversation that you've raised and this example that I'm giving you, it's all about the identity and what is ascribed to that identity and who holds that meaning, right? So in that example, for example, if Tories or reform politicians are saying, well, this is a demonstration of domination of essentially religious and ethnic subjugation, whatever kind of rubbish they might say, is that valid? Or is that, the people on the street who are just praying and doing what they normally do and saying, look, this is innocuous, in fact, this is an interfaith kind of gathering. Is that valid? Who holds that identity and who holds the right to make that meaning?
Well, two things. Firstly, it
Yeah.
reminds me of the conversation with my daughter. She put this on, and I went, "Oh my God, this is Islamification. It's taking
Yeah.
over us. We're just it's out of our control. It's happening to us. We're because it was said with irony. This is not what's happening, and people
Yeah.
this narrative starts to create its own energy. It starts to produce its own thing. so that what wouldn't have mattered once in a while now matters, and people are drawn to it. And when we tell us the story, we us people who go, well, what's wrong with this? We say those who say something's wrong with it, they're just deliberately manipulating things. Well, to an extent, some of them are, but some of them aren't. They're seeing something which doesn't fit their world. But this is a curious viewpoint. I was talking to someone Polish about the situation of the world at the moment, and they'd grown up under sort of communist Poland and been part of what had happened there. And they were describing Russia, and they were describing this sort of very parasitic relationship it had with Poland. And they were discussing the current leadership. And they were saying, well, basically, they just want to keep going back to the past which never really existed. They've got this idea of Great Russia, and they've got an idea of this state should be like this, and this should be like this, and this is our area of, and it used to be like this, so we should have it. And basically, there's part of politics which doesn't understand change or finds it very hard, and there's part of human life which doesn't understand change and finds it very hard. I mean, quite frankly, I find this quite hard, but it's here. Move with it. I mean, we nudge it around a bit, but it's here. And this is the point. They embrace some forms of change, but they don't like other forms of change. Who's the arbiter of that? And finally, the thing which is, of course, most hypocritical about it. The political classes today are under such attack because there's figures in powerful circles and figures in the establishment, if you like, or in the royal family, or in high-level politics across the board, who are doing far worse than praying in Trafalgar Square. Far, far worse. And yet, that's where our attention goes. Oh yes, these people having a prayer. I mean, well, let's look at prayer. What's the purpose of prayer? What's it about? And is everyone praying the same, or they're not? What's the imagination of that event? What's going through their head? Are they sitting there having a conversation rather than a debate? Are they sitting there having a conversation with people? Are they getting to know them? Are they getting to understand their lives? Or are they simply saying, you've put some new curtains up. I don't like the colour of those curtains in my street. We've got standards in the street, and we're not having orange curtains. We're having blue curtains because I've got blue curtains. Aren't they those sort of stuck people?
Look, just sticking with kind of anti-Semitism. You made a comment. I just want to take you up on it. You said that I am much more interested in your Jewishness than you have ever been, right? Why do you think that is, Jonathan?
Because what story do I make up without talking to you about it? Which is, of course, a theme we're looking at in a sense.
Yeah.
I think because you're, as you say, I'm a conventional Muslim. I'm not sure what that means, but it's. I mean, one thing I do understand is your faith. I think it's beyond faith, really, but your entanglement with the ideas of Islam and existential being. That sounds very faluted, doesn't it? But just, who you are in the world and what Islam is to you. I think those are so ingrained in your daily life and have been for such a long time. It's a bit like me making a cup of tea in the morning. It's very much part of daily process. That I think for someone to be outside that is one thing. For someone to be outside that and yet come, to come from a tradition. I almost feel like the thing that comes to mind is what do you say to someone who says, well, my family are a royal family in another country or another region, in this region there, but I have nothing to do with any of that. I live a normal life and never been interested in it. I'd be fascinated by their royal identity. I go, my God, but hang on, you're connected to these people who wear crowns and or whatever. I'd be fascinated by it because it's so different to my own life, and yet I recognise it as an existence in its own. I doubt it is, but that's what I play with it, and I suspect some of that's going on. I mean, to be fair, you're also quite interested in my anthropological identity. You're interested in my psychotherapeutic identity. You're interested in my thinking identity, my family identity. I mean, all these aspects of me. Less so the cooking, because
Yeah, okay, yeah.
we've
Got to get back.
you don't cook,
come,
do you?
come back to that.
Yeah. I've got the rice. You come down, we'll cook it.
We will do it.
It's probably the greatest rice in the world, guaranteed. So, yeah. Why are you so interested in? What do you think? I mean, it's your question, but why do you think?
Is that a really interesting question? There is a view that I come across commonly that because I am a Muslim, and I'm a practicing Muslim by all means, I must be anti-Jew. It's not quite said in those words, but it's implicit. It's this view is all over the media. It is implicit in some interactions that I also have, for example. And I'm just, if I turn up to any equality, diversity initiative, or which I have done over the years, and then somebody will always come up to me, yes, but what about the Jews and the homosexuals, right? And I'm like, why are you just assuming that I have any issues with Jewish people or homosexual people for that matter, right? But that question is always there. It's always hanging around me in some sense, Jonathan. That's one thing, I suppose. And so there's other aspects to this as well, right? Why I'm interested. I went to school in Guildford, as you know, right? Private school. Really good school. I didn't like it at the time, but really, really good school. I benefited from a great schooling, right? When I was about my son's age, 14, 15, I think that's a very formative part of life, isn't it? A lot of the schooling or the curriculum in different aspects, in terms of history, in terms of English, and in terms of religious studies, so it's a very humanities-based school. Yeah, it was all about the Jewish experience, not all about, but a very large part, the experience of the Holocaust. We were being taught about these things from the point of history. We were doing this in religious studies as well. We had to do a massive project on the Holocaust in religious studies. It also came out in English, in some of the books and the texts that we've read, right? I don't know this, Jonathan. It didn't appear to me that there were any Jews in that school. I might be wrong, right? I don't have a nose for these things. I just don't. Do you know what I mean? Unless you told me, then I wouldn't know, right? And but I remember the story, and the stories that kept coming up, right? About Kristallnacht, about the Yellow Stars, about the pogroms, about Auschwitz, about the final solution, right? Yeah, I remember it really in detail, right? And how important it was. And perhaps over that period, because it's a very formative period, you're learning a lot about the Jewish experience and what it means. And I will tell you something from my point of view, Jonathan, that, and maybe I'm wrong, but the modern English outlook is absolutely informed by the horrors of the Holocaust, by the genocide that took place, by the idea of never again. This is what I understood modern English liberalism, to be either about or to be in large part based upon, right? And implicit in that, as I grew older, perhaps not at school, but as I grew older, there was this kind of understanding that has been always this idea that kind of seeps through the media. This is whether you go left wing or right wing, whether you're a Telegraph reader or the Guardian. Well, Muslims, these barbaric kind of people from these barbaric far off lands, they don't really understand it. And we are the great defenders. of the Jewish tradition and of Judaism, which is it's not the oldest religion in the world. I think that probably belongs to Zoroastrianism, but is a great ancient religion with a great ancient code. Um, and we are the fundamental defenders of Judeo-Christian values, right? Such that now, of course, we have Nigel Farage trying to appeal to Judeo-Christian values, whereas there is an argument, as you know, that he might have been quite sympathetic to the National Front back in the day. That argument has been made. So that's why I'm really interested in it. This is, Judaism, Jewish identity, civil rights of Jewish people, not just of Jewish people, but particularly using Jewish people as a case in point, is absolutely fundamental to, I think, I would argue, to British identity. But I never met any Jewish people when I was growing up, and unless I went to one of the mosque interfaith events, or unless I didn't know about it.
I mean, maybe that's part of it. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe we still have an exotic element for you. One thing before I reply to that is
Yeah.
you said Zoroastrian was probably the oldest faith in the world. I imagine atheism is actually the oldest faith in the world. The agnostics getting in there too, but they need a bit of faith thrown in. I think they've been consistently going since the
Oh,
dawn of utilitarian ideas.
that is a whole other podcast, which we
I know,
will
but
pick up. Yeah.
just before we give value to age, I think
Okay.
they win the trophy by a very very long margin. Although they might not have gathered together in order to do it, they had other things to do that day. But what you're kind of saying is, I think you see, if I think of what you would call modern liberal British values, which I'm not sure what they are, and the event of the Holocaust,
Mm,
it is a factor. It's not the factor. You need a whole load of philosophers going quite a long way
mm,
back, to grounding ideas of you know the right of law, the right of individuals, the right of groups. All this is needing done. But what's going on? What I find interesting, if you like, as you reflect back on things like the Holocaust, there's been other Holocausts in other ways. This was
yeah, of
very
course.
industrialized. It was very modern. That's what really catches up, and it's on a huge scale, and it's utterly. It's so shocking. It's even shocking the people doing it. They're trying to hide it away. They're shocked by their own capacity to do this. But what is it we learn from those things? For the groups who are immediately affected by it, it has a very personalized meaning. Hang on, let me just play something. I think there's a slight echo. Hang on. Sorry. Let me just try and get that off. Oh, I can't. Let's leave it. Let's just echo a little. Sorry about that, Musa. So for people most affected by it, this one meaning.
Mm-hmm.
But for society to take the message, I think it's actually got a very different meaning. It's not about a named group of people. That's useful to keep in mind. It's very useful to keep in mind and to look at how that happens. But it's really about what we do as we other people and as we remove them from outside the rights of law and outside the rights of respect. And as we look at their funny little ways and their funny little habits and their funny little ways of speaking and their funny ways of dressing and their funny food and their funny
Mm,
little things they do that kind of annoy us and we don't quite trust. And what we do with all that, because we're simply not understanding it, because they're not funny to themselves in any sense whatsoever. And how we use that to feel better about ourselves because we're not that funny thing. And then how we can remove them from the same rights as us and how they become threatening to us, whoever we are, and how it's politically mobilized, and how quite soon after that we can start actually being more brutal. And we can start creating conditions of release upon these people. We can release the tensions of the day. It's often called scapegoating, but really it's a release. And we do that upon them. And in response to that, they start reacting. And they become something they weren't quite before. And on it goes. Is that the lesson we take away, or do we take away this named group? For the named group who experienced it and who live it and whose ancestors live with it, it's a different experience, and it is utterly awful. For those who govern and those responsible for governing, and for those who have social responsibility in their lives, the lesson we have to take away is, what do we do to others who aren't ourselves, or who we claim are not ourselves?
Well, that's fascinating, Jonathan, because one of the things that I've learned since that education, now it's coming on a bit, maybe 25, 30 years ago, many years ago, right? 30 more than, probably more likely 30 than I would like to admit, but is the interconnectedness of humanity, right? So I was growing up, obviously, in Guildford at that time. It was a very white area, right? Really white, middle class area. I was just some Pakistani kid with my twin brother. We were complete misfits, complete misfits in the school, in the environment. It caused lots of issues, tensions. So we were here learning about the Holocaust, which, to be honest, I mean, what's that got to do with our family heritage? Our family heritage, the major trauma of our family heritage, of course, was the partition, which we kind of didn't understand at that time, right? And then we were also, I kind of grew up in Hampshire before Surrey, right? So in Alton, a small town. The Second World War, throughout my childhood, Remembrance Sunday, all of these were absolutely fundamental aspects of growing up in England at that time, right? I don't think it's actually emphasized as much as it was back then as it is now. I don't think that people understand how important this was in kind of 1980s, early 1990s Britain. And I thought this had nothing to do with me, Jonathan. Honestly, I thought this had nothing to do with me. It took me a long time. This is why it's such a learning and formative experience for me, because over the course of that year, I suppose, of schooling, or year and a half, I began to really understand why the Holocaust was so important, right? Of course, Jonathan, it had everything to do with me. I found out years later that one of my great-grandfathers went and served in the British Army in Burma, right? As a passing comment, just a passing, oh yeah, he went off there. Do you know what I mean? And years later, I find out, the mosque that I go to comes from most of the people who go to that mosque come from a village where, they were all fighting men who went off and served in the army, right? And so, hang about, all of this, I thought, I was turning up to Remembrance Sunday, listening to We Will Remember Them, and I was thinking that I have anything to do with it. And I think still very many people would say that people of Pakistani and Indian background in this country had nothing to do with it. Whereas, of course, if you go back into history and look at the books, that's completely, incongruous with reality. And then the other aspect, which I really find interesting personally, my grandfather, he is from a tribe called the Yusufzai tribe. Yusufzai tribe is a massive tribe spreading across Pakistan and Afghanistan. There are, many Afghans who claim descent, and it's very plausible if you go back to the history that the Yusufzai means Joseph. Yusufzai claimed direct descent from Joseph, who was obviously the son of Jacob, who's also known as Israel. And it's very likely that the Yusufzai tribe and these other tribes have direct Jewish descent in some fashion, and probably there may well be some element of that descent in me, right? I'm not saying definitively, right? But there's a certain interconnectedness of human history that we have forgotten, isn't it? And that we have, when we take on these identities and we ascribe meanings and values to them, that we completely forget and blur the reality of our interconnectedness.
We'll talk of interconnected. I can hear the cat outside the door. The question that comes up to me is, what do you think people are? I mean, because you're saying they're interconnected because you can draw lines on a family tree, and there might be lines you'd forgotten about, and that as long as you can draw a line on a family tree, we are all interconnected.
Is that what I'm saying, Jonathan?
I think, in a sense, you are, because you're saying, I've looked, I'm looking at my family, and I'm realizing we're not just a family tree, on a historical tree too. So it's almost like it's almost like a mapping is going on. As long as you've got a position on the map, you can find where you are in history, and you can find where you are in relation to other people. That seems to be the model.
I think that would be simplistic, right? What I would actually posit, as a psychiatrist, right, is that we are the sum of all of our experiences, including our ancestral and inherited experiences. That's who we are. That's who I bring, to my chair, and that's who the patient brings to their chair when they come and sit down, right? Some of those things we know very well where they're coming from. Some of those things we don't know where they're coming from. Some of those things we can trace out. Some of those things we can't trace out. Probably, Jonathan, there's a lot more things that we can't trace out about why we do things, about unconscious motivations, about genetic predilections. Probably a lot that we can't trace out than that we can trace out. And yet what we do in our kind of very short-sighted way is we hang our hat on the things that we can see. So we can see color, we can see ostensible religious practice, you can see the beard on my face, you can see the hat that you may or may not be wearing, you can see see or directly experience, the way you speak English, the language that you speak, or the accent that you speak in, and we ascribe identity to this. But when we do that, what we lose is the hidden histories that really bring us together, and I think that is absolutely fundamental.
Yeah, well, I think that's exactly where we start. I think that's crucial, because, as you say, as long as we deal in the superficial, slightly, the bits of us which are easily identifiable without knowing us, as long as we sit there, and as long as we don't think there's any other aspects to ourselves. And of course, as a psychiatrist, there are many aspects to ourselves which are, beneath the waves, and which are interacting with ourselves and interacting with others and come from others. You're aware of that, and I think in other fields, artists will see aspects of ourselves that we don't see. Anthropologists see aspects of ourselves. I mean, every place you look, this happens. I once met a parachutist who had a good sense of gravity. He just had a good sense of how we went down, because he liked to jump out of planes, but he had a sense of it. And I thought, oh yes, I do keep, there is something going on there. I hadn't noticed it. That's part of me too. We have so many parts. We have so many parts. I mean, you could spend a lifetime naming them and you won't get to the end of it. And if it is about experience, the only parts you can't see are the ones you haven't experienced or haven't had the courage to face.
When we started this conversation, Jonathan, so I kind of tentatively asked you, do you feel comfortable speaking about this today? And you said, sure, I'll speak about it if I can say what I want to say. What was it that you were afraid of?
I thought I might offend people because when that story about the ambulances, so there was a story in North London, there were 4 ambulances that belonged to some sort of Jewish charity which got burnt in a deliberate act of arson, which they're still investigating, with all sorts of stories around it. And I thought my immediate reaction to that, and still is, I didn't know that groups, Jewish groups or any other groups, had their own little ambulances. It never occurred to me. And then I thought, would I rather be picked up by an ambulance or a Jewish ambulance? Because I'm Jewish, maybe I can call in. Maybe there's a secret number which I haven't been told of yet, and I can call in and say I want a Jewish ambulance. And I'd still go for the ambulance. I just feel the ambulance is going to be a sort of better kitted thing. It's not sort of run by a community group. I don't know what this thing is. I had no idea it existed. And I don't know whether they do emergencies. Are they emergency ambulances, or are they just picking up? Are they effectively mini buses? Anyway, so there was this big story of anti-Semitism. And what has obsessed me ever since, I said it might be be trouble for you and offensive for others, but I'm just wondering about the world of community ambulances funded by jumble sales and a bit of fundraising and raffles. I mean, I didn't know such a thing existed, but I suppose maybe there's tons of it around. But right now, coming back to the point, it's a story about the Jews. So it must include me. The Jews have got their own ambulances. How very Jewish is that? Oh yeah, the Jews would have their own ambulances. We don't have enough ambulances if you have a heart attack. But the Jews have got their own ambulances. I suspect there's all sorts of these things going on. But the story's become a bit of that too. The privileged Jews looking after their own. I don't know. What is that?
I would have. I mean, when I heard the story, I didn't know that about this charity either. I just presumed it's part of the outreach kind of charitable work that many Jewish people do. And I think that we forget sometimes about the amount of charitable work that happens undercover in this country. We're talking about this trust. We're talking about this ambulance, and I'm sure that non-Jewish people benefit. In fact, I think I read a couple of stories that non-Jewish people obviously benefit from it just as much as Jewish people. There are hospices in this country. Many of them are run by, I understand, religious foundations or people with, especially Christian backgrounds or beliefs. There's lots of work that Muslim faith groups do for the community as well. And I think one of the things actually, Jonathan, in all of this is there's a risk that we underappreciate that. Whatever happened with this event, whatever the motivations, in whoever did it, in some sense, and I was thinking about this as I was driving. In some sense, there was a quite deliberate attempt to disrupt community harmony. And I think we forget as Britain how much we have community harmony and have had historically, and how much it is something to be aspired to. And there have been lots of different attempts and lots of different foreign actors and foreign states from across the spectrum, actually, from the far right to the far left, who have seen British kind of unity and the diversity in our unity as something to kind of target and to disrupt, right? And in some sense, we're really at that point where this could really fissure if we don't hold to it and treasure it and don't let these things divide us. And I'm very worried that it seems to me that we might not be able to pull back from the very divisive way that our politics is going, and such incidents, which are heinous, will continue to happen. But not that just that they will continue to happen; they will be used to fuel division. And if we let that happen, then then Britain and us, we're in a very difficult time indeed.
But what it requires, and this is very hard, it requires a certain form of leadership. It requires a certain consensus within mainstream politics, it requires a certain consensus. There are subjects which are off matter for debate. It used to be it may still be. If there's a bomb goes off, you don't start blaming the other parties. That's pretty much starting to go. There was something happened. What was it? And they just started. Off they went. But unless you have that, then you turn everything into political capital. You might have those conversations behind doors, but to some degree, because I don't think they quite understand their responsibilities at times. Part of being in politics is to keep some sort of stable middle ground. That is, otherwise you end up, things become volatile and people get hurt and things change outside of, people get damaged. And you think, oh, that's all for the best in the long run. It needs to happen. You can't make an omelette without breaking eggs. Well, who are the eggs? They're people. You can, you can't make an omelette without breaking eggs. But you can make society without breaking people. It is perfectly possible if you have the skills and capacity. And of course, most of them don't. They're not in there for skills and capacity, or their skill and capacity is getting ahead and ambition and having things their way. If that's their skill and capacity, fine. But I don't think it's socially particularly useful. I think it's destructive. So yes, you've got this huge charity sector going on, massive. We can't think how many charity projects there are doing a lot of things. You've got all the people with faiths who are praying in Trafalgar Square or praying somewhere else or doing their thing, who give an awful lot of money to charity because they feel this is part of their faith, and often they give it to their own faith too. This is also part of charity. You form a identical gravitational object of giving, and that's what you give to. And it is, you'll fundraise amongst the target audiences. There's a whole slight science to it. There's an art and a science to it. But that's about community to a point. It's about cohesiveness to a point. And as you quite rightly say, those who undermine that do so because the disruption is of far more value than the cohesion.
Well, Jonathan, those people, they seem to get all the clicks and the likes and the subscribers. That's exactly.
You know that's not an accident. You do know that's not.
I know that's not an accident. I just wonder if our viewers understand that it's not an accident, and if they would ever so kindly mind subscribing to our podcast, because it's essentially, to be honest, I mean, we've talked about a very difficult topic today, somewhat sensitive as well. I hope we've treated the matter with the due reverence and respect that it deserves. This podcast is all about trying to ensure that we have sensible, grown-up, mature conversations that don't have to end up in sound bites or in artificial debates, and we can really think through the questions. So if you enjoy this kind of manner of discussing issues in a mature manner, we hope, then please like, subscribe, share this podcast, and tell your friends.
I was hoping to be able to sell some more rice from sponsorship of the rice company, which is also how it works out there. But unfortunately, they haven't sponsored me. So it's just no Soundbites, as you say, and no angry people ranting.
I'll be down. I'll be down in Brighton next week, Jonathan.
Are you coming down?
Well, I'll come at some point. Need to sample your rice.
Need to learn how to come down with rice. Yeah, I'll show you how to cook. That's going to be an episode. Right.
Thank you very much, Jonathan.
Thank you very much, Musa. See ya.
Cheers.